Hi guys, I welcome you all to the UNX Officers YouTube channel. My name is Nober and today my topic is about the first death that has been reported due to the climate change. Now, this happened recently in Canada and was in news about a few days back. So, this topic is related to our GS3, and particularly we'll be covering climate change and wildfires, and also I'll be giving some information about heat waves. But before going into the details, I want to say that the climate change is the most cliched topic about UPSC, and there is a lot of content available, and sometimes while we are writing the answers, an aspirant gets very confused about what to write in the answers because there is a lot of content available. So whenever you are writing an answer about climate change, or particularly in GS3, try to write about mostly about what is happening in in the contemporary times, and avoid writing the historical perspective of it. Like if you're writing about climate change, for example, try to relate it with the recent happenings around the world, or recent reports that are related to it, that have been published in the recent times. So before any further ado, let's get into the details. Recently, there was a news about a patient who had been diagnosed with some breathing difficulties, and this happened in uh, Cutane's regions of British Columbia. So now this British Columbia, let's get into the maps, and I'll try to show you the map. So this is Canada, right? And this is our United States. So basically this area comes in the North American region, and it is on the western side of the North American region. So now if we recall our GS concepts about geography, we know that the western sides of our continents are mostly dry. Like if you look for the Atacama Desert, or some deserts in North America or in Africa, we see that mostly these regions are drier than the other regions. And there are a lot of reasons behind it. We won't go into those details, but what are we going to remember here is that this region is on the western side of the North America, and is slightly drier, and has been seeing a lot of wildfires in the recent times. Like in a report, it has been even said that around 1600 wildfires occurred only in this fiscal year. 1600 wildfires. That is a really big number. So if we try to understand the technicality about it, so the wildfires particularly are the unplanned fires that happen due in the natural areas, and there are a lot of reasons behind the wildfires as to what starts a wildfire, and the duration of wildfires is also varied, and it depends from anthropogenic reasons to any geographical activity that has been happening in that area. So it has been reported by the Natural Resources Canada, which is actually a federal government department, that the number of fires this year, particularly in that region, has gone very high beyond the historical average. So the reasons are not can't be ascertained as of yet, but even if we try to remember, there have been many fires also in Californian region, and recently also in Australia. It has also seen a lot of wildfires recently. So what exactly causes fire? Like if we try to remember our elementary school concepts, what causes fire? Fire is particularly heat plus oxygen and fuel, and whenever it gets a spark, it turns into fire. So in our forests, for example, there is a lot of fuel available. Like what makes up the fuel? It is the dried leaves, right? Dead trees which are not very wet, right, they are very dry. And oxygen is in abundance, like oxygen is everywhere, right? And heat, we'll discuss this heat part in a while. But spark is particularly, it is mainly due to the anthropogenic activities. That is, whenever people go for camping and they do not extinguish their campfires very judiciously. There are even instances where the geographical activities like volcanoes, etc., also cause the wildfires. Like the lava, it's like very hot, and it also can use this dried material of the forest as the fuel, which starts the fire. So, talking about these wildfires and how they are related to climate change. So, because there have been fires even before, like it is a natural process, we can't deny that. But what is the relationship between wildfires and the climate change? Let's try to understand that. So, if we see this cycle particularly, we see that the hotter the temperatures, like if there was the average temperature of 40 degrees Celsius in some area of the forest, and it has increased by even 2 degrees or 3 degrees now, it will cause the abundance of fuel in that area. Okay, so also, because there is a longer duration of these higher temperatures, it will also cause the longer wildfire season. What does that mean? It means that if there is the duration of this higher temperature is smaller, the vulnerability of that area being wildfire prone would be smaller. But since these temperatures are there for a longer duration of time, the wildfire season is also increasing. Okay, so also the next step would be that these hotter temperatures would also create a lot of fuel for these fires. That is, the rainfall would decrease, or the fire or the leaves and dead wood would dry up very quickly and very easily. That would cause an abundance of the fuel available for this wildfire. And also, since the fuel is drier, right, because there is an increased temperature, that was also cause the hotter, bigger and long lasting fires, right? Hotter because the temperature is already very high, and more the fire means the hotter the wildfire, right? And bigger because it would be spread on a larger area, and long lasting because there is the abundance of fuel. Like long lasting fire means that fuel is in very large quantities. And what does this fire give us? Like it would increase the CO2 or other gases that are emitted during this process, and it would particularly increase the greenhouse gases, right? And we know that in climate change, greenhouse gases particularly are the main culprit, right? So if there is increased smoke and increased greenhouse gases, which means that the temperature is bound to rise, because greenhouse gases are the reason behind the hotter temperatures, right? So this is like a cycle that goes and goes on increasing. And it is not it's not something that can be stopped in a day, right? Like what is causing this hotter temperature is actually the outcome of these wildfires. So this cycle goes and goes on, right? So now, coming on to the effects of these wildfires, like how does it change, what effect does it have on the biodiversity or the ecosystem, right? So now we have understood that there are going to be very adverse effects of these wildfires, but particularly for the living organisms like animals and humans as well. Okay, so firstly, the forest cover depletes whenever there's a wildfire, because trees burn, shrubs, herbs, everything burns out, right? Soil also gets affected. We'll see that in a while. Like how does soil get affected? Tree growth, vegetation and overall flora and fauna of that place gets affected. So these wildfires are spread over hectares, many hectares of land, like hundreds and thousands of hectares of land, right? There are instances where the whole forest gets burned up, and what it leaves behind is ash, and ash makes this land barren. It gets barren for a longer duration of time, and there is no sort of vegetation that grows on this soil because of this ash and other residue that is left behind. So heat gets generated during these fires, and due to this increased heat, it destroys animal habitats and it kills animals. Like we have seen in the Australian fires that those kangaroos and other animals were getting out of those fires towards the human habitats, and people were helping them in treating their burns and all. But not every animal can escape this fire, and animal habitats and animal population gets depleted in these areas. Now coming to the soil, the quality of soil decreases because a lot of nutrients and minerals get destroyed in these soils, and due to this alteration in this mineral composition of the soil, it is not very fertile and it becomes barren, right? And the vegetation there also decreases. So soil moisture, obviously it would decrease because fires cause all the water evaporate, and fertility also gets affected due to this reason. So also forests shrink in size because they do not overcome this shock in like a short duration of time, because we know how much time it takes for a forest to grow. So since the trees and shrubs, herbs, everything just burns down, which means that the forest cover would also decrease, right? And this would and even if there are some trees that survive this shock, they remain stunted and the growth of these trees gets severely affected. Okay. So now we also came across the term heat waves in this, that wildfires, particularly in Canadian region or North American region as a whole, or even in Australian region, we have seen the main reason, not main reason, like a major factor behind it was heat waves. Like heat waves are the conditions when the temperature becomes fatal for the human body. Not only human body, like heat wave in particularly is seen in accordance with the human body, but it's not only for the human body, like it changes the whole ecosystem, um, due to various effects that it has on the flora and fauna of that place. But for humans particularly, heat waves can be fatal, right? So now IMD, that's Indian Meteorological Department, it has set up some criteria about the temperature when we declare that the temperature is actually heat wave, like the heat wave is going on. So we'll try to understand those criteria. Okay. So heat wave is considered maximum when the maximum temperature of a station reaches 40 degrees Celsius for the plains. Like if in our plains, for example, if the temperature is 40 degree, or if in the hilly areas, like if we try to draw a map here. Okay, so these are our plains, right? If the temperature here reaches around 40, and in our hilly areas, that is here and here, if it reaches around 30 degrees Celsius, so we can say a heat wave is prevailing over these areas. Also, this is about the maximum temperature. Okay, so also if the normal maximum temperature of some station, for example, is less than or equal to 40 degrees, that is particularly in our desert areas, or in our coastal areas, and if even if it increases by 5 or 6 degrees Celsius, we say that it is a heat wave. But also if it increases up to 7 degrees Celsius, we say that it is a severe heat wave. Okay. Also, if at some place the normal temperature is about 40 degrees Celsius, and there is an increase of say 4 to 5 degrees from the normal temperature, we say that a heat wave is going on. And if the normal temperature of some place is like 40 degrees Celsius, and it is increasing by actually it's 37 degrees here. Okay, and it's increasing by 6 degrees or more, so we say that it is a severe heat wave going on. So heat waves, particularly in India, go on in the months of June, May and June, and particularly North India sees a lot of heat waves, right? Additionally, we see that if the temperature overall remains 45 degrees, irrespective of whatever the normal maximum is of that place, so we say that a heat wave is declared. Okay, so these are the criteria that the IMD specifies about the heat waves. So what all are the effects of these heat waves? Like, we know that humans get affected due to heat waves, but particularly dehydration, heat cramps, and heat exhaustion or heat stroke might occur because of the heat waves. There is also a concept of heat dome. I would suggest that you go through it because time is very limited here. I cannot explain it. So what these are the effects on a human body, right? So these heat cramps, fatigue or weakness, dizziness, right, muscle cramps, sweating, nausea, headache, vomiting, etc., are all the effects of the heat wave on a human body. So uh, recently, like, this is something you should look up for, COP26, that is happening in Glasgow. Recently it happened, like from October 21 to November 12. Okay, so what the representatives of various countries have pledged that they should stop deforestation by the end of the decade and slash emissions of potent greenhouse and methane to help slow down the climate change. So this is particularly important because they have pledged to take out steps this time. This time they have recognized that the wildfires that have been caused in the North American and Australian regions are because of the climate change, and it's likely high time that we actually take some steps about the same. Also, we went through uh, a department in this lecture, that was Indian Meteorological Department. We all know that it was established in 1875, and recently in CSE exam there was in one of the exams of a PSC, this there was this question about the 6 regional meteorological centers, and I think that this should be remembered, right? There are 6 regional meteorological centers, one in Mumbai, Chennai, New Delhi, Calcutta, Nagpur, and Guwahati. Okay, so I think that should be it. Also, if you can please go through this article particularly, I think this will clear up most of the concepts about the COP26, because we know that Conference of Parties is important, particularly the Paris Climate or the Paris Climate Treaty, and other COPs are very important. Even for the answer writing, these might help you, and this article particularly will tell you about the recent summit that had happened like this month. So that's all from my side. Please subscribe to our YouTube and Telegram channels and keep supporting our channel, and we'll come up with the in future with more interesting topics. So I would say thank you, and see you soon.